I've lived and worked in Yakima for over 8 years now, and one of the most common questions I get from buyers is, should I buy a condo or should I buy a house? Because on paper, condos sound amazing. Lower maintenance, sometimes, actually often, more affordable for the same square footage, and simpler living. But in reality, it is not always that simple. And I have seen people make really great decisions with condos, and I've also seen people end up in situations they didn't fully understand going in. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the real pros and cons of both, and more importantly, help you figure out which one actually fits your life. And if you're in Yakima and trying to figure out what's best for your situation personally, feel free to reach out. I am happy to walk through it with you. Okay, so let's start super simple and basic. A house means you own the home and the land, typically, and everything that comes with it. A condo means you own the inside of your unit and then you share ownership of everything else. So a house is a little bit like owning your own business, and a condo is a little bit more like being part of a co-op. You still own something valuable, but you're sharing decisions and costs and responsibilities with a group. And that's not bad, it's just different. Now let's start with houses because this is what most people naturally lean towards. So the first pro is control. You can do what you want with your home. You can paint it, you can remodel it, you can rent it. No one is approving your decisions. Another pro is the land and the privacy. You have your own space, usually a yard. You often have at least a little bit of distance from neighbors, and that matters more to some people than others, truly. Another pro is that there's no HOA usually. We do have some single family home HOAs here in this area, but they tend not to be as restrictive as HOAs for condos. So when you aren't a member of an HOA, you don't have monthly dues, you do not have surprise assessments, and there's no rules about what your front door looks like or the temperature of the light bulbs at your entryway. If you've seen those TikToks, they're wild. Also, with a single family home, the financing is much easier. This is a big one. Houses are just simpler when it comes to loans. But the cons are there. The trade-off is that it's all on you. Think about maintenance, roof, HVAC, yard, repairs. It's all your responsibility. If you're not going to do it yourself, you need to pay someone else to. And honestly, I've had buyers underestimate this factor more times than I can count. My first home, actually, I underestimated this so much. We were not prepared for the size and scope of our first home. We should have bought a condo or a townhome or something way smaller and less expensive. And I can tell you, it costs you in the long run not maintaining a home. Another con is the cost. More space usually means more money upfront and ongoing. It costs more to heat. Costs more to cool. If you have shared walls, actually cheaper to heat and cool a lot of the time too, because you're more insulated. Also, another con is time and energy. If you're a busy person, I know I am, this can quickly become overwhelming. So now let's talk about the pros of a condo, because for the right person, they can be a fantastic option. The first pro is my favorite one, lower maintenance. A lot of the exterior parts of the home are handled for you. Now, every HOA is a little bit different, so you have to read the fine print of what you're responsible for versus what you're not. I gotta tell you, honestly, if I didn't have help at home in the form of having a partner and having the finances to be able to hire help when I needed it, if I was doing everything myself, I would absolutely consider a condo or a townhome for myself, because I'm already overwhelmed just trying to get through my business and volunteering and friends and family. It's a lot. Another pro for a condo is that it really does lend itself to having a simpler lifestyle. You can lock and leave. Less mental load, less to think about. Also, they're often usually at a lower price point for the same square footage. So sometimes it's an easier entry into homeownership, or a great option for a downsize if you're downsizing. Often makes sense to downsize into a condo or a townhome versus downsizing to just a smaller house, because usually when people are downsizing, they're also looking for less maintenance and less responsibility. Another pro is that it's really great for certain lifestyles. I see this work really well for people whose priorities lie outside of the home. Travel, work, hobbies, all of that. This is an area where for me, my home is actually one of my highest priorities at all times. So I really love to be able to do this. Obviously, having a partner helps, but I love having my home as one of my top priorities. If my priority wasn't there, then it would be different. Now, some of the cons of a condo. So this is where we're going to need to slow down a little bit, because this is where people can actually get surprised. There are things that they may not know about owning a condo. First, the part that most people do know is that you're going to have monthly dues. But what you may not realize is that those can change over time and increase sometimes dramatically. And sometimes there are special assessments. I know of a local association actually out here in Terrace Heights in Yakima that had to redo their entire sewer system underneath the entire neighborhood. And depending on where your unit was and how far it was from the street, that could have been thousands of dollars in a special assessment. It was often spread out over multiple years, but when you were selling a home, you're often required to pay the special assessment in full, and it may not have been something that they were aware of. So if you're not reviewing title and documents carefully when you're purchasing a home, those things can catch you off guard. Also, when selling a home, you want to review those things. The second big con that I know a lot of people feel, and this one most people are very aware of, is you do not have full control. You get a voice, but you're one voice out of many. The bigger the association is, the more lopsided that it could be if you have a dissenting opinion. Decisions are made as a group, and you may not always agree. The next con is that financing can be tricky. Now, this is something that a lot of people do not realize. You can be a fully qualified buyer who's got a great financial position on a normal loan and still not be able to buy a specific condo, because the lending and the underwriting has a lot of overlays looking at the association and how the association itself handles its money and how it's organized. So I've actually had a deal where the condo had previously gone FHA, but when we tried to use FHA for the next buyer, the association had fallen out of compliance with FHA lending requirements. So the buyer was ready, the home was great, and we still couldn't make it work. Lenders look at the HOA, not just you as the buyer. Another con here are lifestyle mismatches. I've definitely seen buyers think that they wanted low maintenance and later realize it just didn't fit their life anymore. I've seen it with growing families. I've seen it with needing a yard for kids or dogs. And I've also seen it frequently in downsizing too much too fast. Someone downsizes too quickly, or they didn't take a long enough time to properly downsize, and they get very frustrated trying to squeeze themselves into a condo. So sometimes people say they want less space, and then they realize that they still have all their stuff and they don't want to get rid of any of it. The next really, really big one is restrictions. And these are like CC&R restrictions, not just like pretty things with the HOA. This can be a really big one. A lot of HOAs have rental restrictions, they have owner occupancy requirements, and they have age restrictions. I've actually even seen, this was not my client or my situation, but I've seen a situation where someone bought into a 55 and older community and they didn't realize it. They got through the whole process. The buyer's agent didn't notice it. It never came up on title. Title didn't catch it, even when they took the buyer's driver's license and everything. And the buyer moved in and the HOA said, like, hey, we noticed that you're not 55 or older and that nobody in your household is, because that HOA, they needed at least one person that was 55 or older. And so they actually had to turn around and sell the home. Another good example here is an investor I knew who fully renovated a property. They were able to get into it at a good price point. They did a cash out refi, and then they realized that they couldn't rent it out due to the HOA rules. A lot of HOAs will say no rentals in there, or they will have a limit on how many of them can be rentals at once. And that investor is still holding that condo vacant. So which one is right for you, a condo or a house? A condo might be right if you want low maintenance, you're busy, or you travel a lot, or you're okay with shared decision making. Maybe you're not fussy when it comes to those things and you value having others to defer to in those cases, and your lifestyle is mostly outside your home, or you value simple living. A house might be better if you want that control, and if you want space or land or privacy, and if you're thinking about long-term flexibility in a space, having a home and land that you own is definitely important. And it'll also save you from having HOA surprises. If the idea of working with a group of people to make shared decision making is a problem for you, this is probably not a good fit. Now, personally, I do not think one is better than the other, but I do think that one is better for you, depending on your life, your goals, and your tolerance for certain trade-offs. And this is honestly one of the biggest conversations I have with buyers before we even start looking. So if you're trying to decide between a condo and a house, don't just ask which one is better, ask which one fits your life right now. And if you want help figuring that out, reach out. I'd love to help walk you through it. And if this video was helpful, make sure to subscribe. I put out new videos every week to help you make smarter real estate decisions. And if you'd like to watch some more of my content, YouTube thinks that you might like this video next.